What's up, everybody? The video that you guys are about to watch is an interview that I do with Kevin Webb. Now, a lot of you guys might not know who Kevin is, but he's one of the top inspectors in the St. Louis area. So I basically have a discussion with him about, if you are looking to purchase a classic vehicle, what are the things that you should be looking for? What are the things that you should be staying away from whenever you see? What's the importance of inspecting? And, if you end up ultimately purchasing a classic vehicle, what are the best ways to maintain its value? So if you guys have any questions for Kevin, I'm going to put his information on screen now. But with that being said, enjoy the interview. Awesome. So, Kevin, thank you so much for being here. Get with Classic Cars is happy to host you here. And I think it's just important to state that a lot of people are listening. It's going to be their first time getting into the classic car industry. Maybe they've never purchased a classic car before. So can you just tell us a little bit about your background, how long you've been in the industry, and then if somebody is looking to purchase a classic vehicle, what advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, I've been fortunate that I've kind of grown up with cars. It started with building model cars on the kitchen table with my dad. And I've been lucky enough that I've been in the classic car industry my entire career. I've worked at dealerships and things like that, but the classic cars were always kind of something that I did on the side. Street rods, customs, things like that. Being able to work on these cars, I always considered a privilege because you are working on a piece of history. And back when I started, they were normal cars. They were everyday cars. So unfortunately, I've been able to kind of grow up with these cars and understand how they work and things like that. One of the first things I always tell people when they're getting ready to buy a classic car or looking at a classic car for the first time, regardless of what type of car it is, do your research. It is extremely important. I tell people all the time that surprises are great at birthdays, not classic cars. And you want to be very careful when you buy a car. There are so many cars out there that are available, but you want to make sure that you're buying the right car that suits your needs. It's something that you can drive and enjoy, and it's something that's safe.
I would totally agree. Definitely doing your own research, no matter what industry it is, whether it's looking to buy a car or whatever it is that you're doing your own research is definitely important. So if somebody is looking to purchase their first vehicle, a classic vehicle in particular, what are kind of the red flags, things that, even somebody that's not a car person can look at and be like, yep, let me go the other direction because that's something I shouldn't be.
As again, doing your research, you want to make sure that you're buying the right car for your family. A lot of times people will say, well, I'd really like to have a Cobra, an AC Cobra, because I think they're a beautiful car, they run great, but if you've got kids at home, well, that may not be the right vehicle for them. The other thing to stay away from is I caution people when they're buying a car for the first time, stay away from auctions. And there's a lot of great auction companies out there, but you really have to know what you're doing at those auctions. People watch them on TV, they're very popular. Things look great on TV. They don't necessarily look great when you in person. So you want to be very, very careful. Don't get too excited about the purchase right off the bat. A lot of times, there's always those horror stories where people say, we bought this house, we loved it, but we didn't realize that there's an airport a half a mile away. Things like that. You want to make sure that when you're buying the car, it's going to suit your needs and be comfortable with where you're buying from. If somebody is trying to rush you into the purchase, or they may not want an inspection, things like that, they don't want anybody else looking at the car, those are always danger signs.
Yeah, so if somebody comes up and they're like, no, you're not allowed to inspect it, that might be
That's a huge tip-off. That's a huge tip-off. As most people know, you would probably not buy a house without an inspection.
Gotcha.
Of some kind, and one is required. I do a lot of vehicle inspections on cars, both for Gateway and a couple other companies, and I found that if the seller is willing to have the car inspected, that's a very, very good sign, because they're not trying to hide anything. The cars can look great on the outside, but when you get them in the air or you start to look underneath the car, you start to look at all the functions of the vehicles, does everything work? That's when you start to have problems.
Gotcha.
And if they're willing to let you inspect it, it's a pretty good sign.
Gotcha. And I think that's a good segue into what is the importance of the inspection process?
Well, your classic cars used to be rather inexpensive. At one time, you could pick up a classic car for $2,000 or $3,000. Now we're talking starting at $20,000 in many cases to look at a classic car much higher than that. The other thing that a lot of people will make the mistake of is they'll look at a car and they'll fall in love with it. They'll say, I really, really want this car. This is a good example of this particular vehicle. The purchaser that is looking at the vehicle drove one of these in high school. Well, he did an inspection on the vehicle, and we actually found a couple little things wrong with the car, nothing major. but it's a nice to have an understanding when you're going in, what is my expectations with the car? You know, I didn't know that this didn't work, or I didn't know, oh no, I didn't budget for these particular repairs. Having the vehicle inspected gives you an opportunity to know exactly what you're getting. Also, it kind of gives you a checklist, because one of the biggest reasons you want to have the inspection on the vehicle is safety. This is a huge investment. You're putting a lot of money and a lot of time into these vehicles. You want to make sure that you're protecting your investment, but it's also safe going down the highway. One of the things that we always check, and it sounds crazy, is the age of the tires. The tires on the car might look perfect. They might, they're black, they're round, they look great, but they may be 20 years old. And when you're getting into a vehicle that maybe doesn't have the most modern brakes, doesn't have the most modern steering, you want to make sure that the tires are really good.
Makes sense. Sounds like you shouldn't just make a purchase off emotion. Sounds like that might
Emotions, there's always emotion, and the thing is, emotion can be attached to a previous experience. It could be a car that you grew up with. It could have been a car that mom and dad had, or in this particular case, the gentleman drove a car just like it in high school, and that's great, but you want to be very, very careful that you don't let emotions override your decision and wind up buying something that you're not happy with. Because having a classic car is an experience that not a lot of people have. I always tell people that one of the coolest things is when you take a classic car out for the first time, and all of a sudden you notice that people are waving and people are giving you that thumbs up, and they're seeing you become part of their experience, because they're like, oh wow, look at that cool car. And you really, until you drive one of these cars for the first time, or you pull into a car show for the first time and it's your car, it's a really, really cool experience.
Gotcha. Sounds good. And how about whenever somebody does do the inspection and then they do end up purchasing the vehicle that they want, what are some of the things that you can do to maintain the value of the vehicle, make sure that you don't lose all the value right out the bat? What are some things that you can do there?
Remember, it's not a regular car. It's not something that you park outside. Storage is extremely important. To properly store the vehicle. It's tempting when you buy a classic car to drive it every day. You want to drive it, but that goes away very quickly, because you realize that as you're driving this classic car, not everybody's paying attention around you. It's kind of like riding a motorcycle. You got to be kind of careful. The other side of it is just protect the investment. A good car cover makes a huge difference. We don't want to see boxes piled on the cars. We don't want to see things, bicycles leaned up against them. You want to make sure that you're protecting the vehicle. The other side of it is just keep it clean, maintain it, drive it. The other mistake that a lot of people make is they'll buy a classic car, and I can always tell there's two different types of buyers. There's investors, the people that are buying a car for a long-term investment, that they're wanting, a return on their investment. They think that car is going to go up in value. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But the other side of it is the people that actually drive the cars. And the worst thing you can do to these cars is park them. These cars want to be driven. They were built to be driven. And when you can take it out on the road, you'll notice the first day you drive it, the more you drive the car, the more comfortable it becomes. All the noises and squeaks and rattles that sometimes appear all disappear, because the car kind of settles into its own.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And what would be, like, if you were just going to give a little last bit of information about the importance for buyers to understand, like whenever they're looking to purchase any classic vehicle, what's just a really important thing for any buyer to understand, new or experienced?
Go to events. Go to places. Places like the Cafe and Crown, car shows, things of that nature. Those are really, really important, because if you are going to go and enter this, what we call a sport, some people call it an industry or a hobby, you want to talk to the people about the car you're interested in. And there's nothing better than if you say, I really like a particular type of car, and I see it, talk to the owner. That particular person may be deciding it's time to sell. Also, it might give you an opportunity to sit in the car. You may find that when you get into a particular car, and another good example is an AC Cobra. They're great cars, but if you're 6'5", that's not the car for you. It's not going to be a very comfortable car. But going to these events and things like that, talking to people about, hey, I'm thinking about buying this car. The other side of it is you're going to get a lot of information about what to stay away from.
Gotcha.
This particular car is known for rust in this particular area. Let your inspector know, hey, by the way, while you're checking the car, please look at this area too.
Sounds good. And also, thank you for doing this. And you are also interested in doing a class. So
yes.
Tell us a little bit about the class.
Yes, I'm very excited about that. We have myself and Gateway Classic Cars has put together a class. We're going to be starting that probably in March, I hope. We'll have about a 45-minute class on how to buy a classic car. And it's going to cover a lot of information as far as what types of classic cars are out there. A lot of people don't realize how many different categories of cars there are. The other side of it is insurance, storage, where to get the car fixed, upgrades. You know, if you're looking at a classic car that doesn't have air conditioning, what do you do? Well, those can be added, and it won't hurt the value of the car. So again, it's about a 45-minute class, and it's free, and I look forward to doing that.
Awesome. So I think we're going to be doing that next month. So for our Caffeine and Chrome in March, if anybody's looking to come out and just kind of ask some questions to Kevin about, you know, I'm looking to purchase a classic car, what are the things that I need to do, definitely come out in March, and we can definitely we look forward to having you.
Sounds great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Kevin. All right, everybody have a great rest of your day.
You bet. Thank you.